Alright guys, this is your first video on how to submit an offer. Alright, so first thing you're going to do is go to FMLS, you're going to log in, you're going to see your FMLS login screen. I'm going to go pretty quick through this. If you guys need to, you guys can rewind and rewatch the parts of the video that you need to. For products, we're going to go to RDocs, click that. This window should open up. So for you guys, these might be all blank, but what we're going to do is we're just going to click Create New. This tab should show up. What we're going to do is we're going to first input a property. So we're just going to go on Matrix, which you can access it through a products matrix. And we're just going to go to some random house, and we're going to act like that is the property that we're submitting an offer on. So in your case, you guys probably will already have an offer, property that you want to submit an offer on. Just for demo purposes, we're just going to pick a random house. Alright, so on RDocs, for add property, it'll ask you for the MLS ID. What we're going to do is we're going on our FMLS page, we have our ID. We're going to copy that, paste that into FMLS ID, search for the property, and everything else should autofill. So you don't have to put an estimated closing date yet. You're just going to press submit. Here you see plus client. We're going to add the client information right now. So we're going to representing the buyer, and we're just going to make up somebody's name. Alright. Okay, so once we've added the contact info, we can go back and we can return back to our dashboard. We see this property here. To submit our first offer, we're going to go to Forms. It's going to take a minute. This is the original data sheet. You guys should fill this out and save it whenever you can. It's pretty straightforward here as far as how to fill this out. Now what we're going to do is, because we want to submit our first offer, we're going to go to Add Library and Form. We're going to pick our purchase and sale agreement. If you just type purchase and then search for it, here's our F20, which is our purchase and sale agreement. We're going to add that. Now typically you're going to have a financing exhibit, so let's just say that this is going to be our conventional. So F64, check that, click the arrow, input it on here. Now you might also have the seller's property disclosure, so let's just search for disclosure. So owner's property disclosure, there we go, seller's property disclosure F50, add that. And we're probably also going to have some sort of community disclosure as well, which I believe this is, let's just search for disclosures. So the community association fees disclosure related exhibit. Input that. So once all the forms that we need are here, we're just going to click the blue add button, and it's going to add all of the forms on this left hand column. So now you can work each form starting from the first one, which is the purchase sale agreement. Pretty straightforward. Offer date is going to be today's date, which is the 15th. So we have all of the land lot deed book information filled out here. In this case, you can click either 3 or 4. In the case that you do not have any of this information, you're just going to click 1, which is attached as an exhibit, which is a legal description. Now you can request a legal description from a closing attorney. One of our preferred closing attorneys is going to be Campbell and Brennan, so we will give you access to email the Campbell and Brennan attorneys for them to send you guys a legal description. Alright, so next thing, purchase price of the property. Let's say we're giving them a full list price offer of $1.1 million. Closing costs, discuss with your client. Typically we're going to say 0 for this one. Closing date, we're going to say 30 days from today, right? So pretty much say 11/15/18. All we're going to do is make sure that the 15th lies on a weekday, not a weekend, and not a holiday. Alright, so possession of the property is going to be at closing. If it's not, consult with one of the managers first. Hold of earnest money, Since Village Realty does not hold earnest money, what we're going to do is we're going to put the closing attorney here. In this case, we're going to use Campbell and Brennan. Call and Grab It is my preferred attorney. Earnest money shall be paid by check, cash, or wire transfer. So in this case, to make things easier with F84 A and B, we're going to say wire transfer. Earnest money is going to be submitted. We're going to say, typically for this price point, let's just say that it's going to be 1%. And it's going to be given within 5 days of the binding agreement date. So when this is filled out, just make sure your clients understand that they have 5 days after the offer is accepted in order to submit their earnest money by wire transfer to the closing attorney. Due diligence period, again, discretion, typically anywhere from 7 to 12 days. We'll just say 10 days here. Option, in this case, we're not going to have option money. I will definitely talk to you guys about additional information with option money, but we can discuss that at a later time. Lead-based paint. So, was the property built on prior to 1978? We're just going to check. Year built 2013. So, there is not going to be a lead-based paint disclosure. Village Realty is representing the buyer as a client. Listing broker is representing the seller. There are no material relationship disclosures. Time limit of the offer. So typically you want to give 24 hours, sometimes less, depending on the time of the offer. So currently it's really late. So we're just going to say, we're not going to set it for 9 in the morning. We're going to probably set it for like 3 in the afternoon. Alright, so I'm going to go pretty quick through this stuff. This is, if you guys are not familiar with the purchase and sale agreement, this is where you can access it and read all the items line by line to see exactly what it's for. Hopefully at this point you guys have access to the SOP on the website, so you guys understand how this is all filled out. So in this case, we know that we have a seller's property disclosure. We know that we have a conventional loan exhibit. We did say legal description was going to be offered. And we have a community association fees disclosure and related issues. Beyond this, if you have other addenda or exhibits, then you can add them down here. Get familiar with how this section works. So for the community association fees and disclosures, we're going to label this as CAD. Conventional loan contingency exhibit, we're just going to label it as CONB. Legal, just type in the word legal. Seller's property disclosure, SPD. Special steps, typically refer to our SOP for a list of special steps that are typically used. The most common one that we're going to use is all parties agree that property shall be left in broom swept condition prior to final walkthrough. So this ensures that the property will be left in broom swept condition so that when you guys do your final walkthrough, it's done at that time. Now, in the case that you want the listing agent to provide you with the legal description in your seller's property disclosure, or in some cases you guys might submit an offer where you don't have the seller's property disclosure, or you might not have a community association's disclosure because you're submitting an offer rushed, right? So then let's assume at this point we don't have a seller's property disclosure. Example of a special step to address that would be all parties agree that listing agent shall provide seller's property disclosure within 5 days of binding agreement date. This just means that the listing agent, once you guys go binding, has 5 days to provide your seller with your buyer with a seller's property disclosure so that you guys can make an informed decision before the end of due diligence, which is set at 10 days. So any time frame that you guys set for the listing agent providing any disclosures has to be before that due diligence period is up. So again, for any other additional special steps, just refer to the team managers. We're going to say that another pages are not attached. So for here, there's one buyer, so there's no additional signers are required. I am Atlanta, depending on what board membership you guys are, fill it with the corresponding board info. Binding agreement date when you're submitting an offer is going to be pretty much filled out by the listing agent unless there's a counter offer. So moving on, let's just assume that we're going to fill out all of these because at this point, hopefully, you guys can refer to the SOP to know how to fill these out. So to start the actual offer submission, right, you're going to check off all the documents that you want to be part of the e-sign session. On the top right here, there's a little E with a pen on it. This is the e-sign start. So once I click this, all the forms that I checked are going to be all part of the e-sign session. This window opens up. We can confirm that yes, this is actually the buyer. This is his email. We're going to continue. Now our docs can be notoriously slow, so just bear with the load times. Okay, so we're going to just title this Offer for 1067 Noah Court. This way, at least when you guys, if you have multiple e-sessions out, you know which one is labeled, so just make sure the session titles are pretty specific to what you guys are doing. If it's an amendment or whatever, that way you'll know you can refer back to it. You don't really have to fill this in. What you do have to do is you say include me as signer and auto-populate yourself as a signer. Now here you can send to one signer at a time in order, sequentially, or you could send to all signers at once. When you're submitting an offer for on behalf of your clients, you want to make sure that the first one is checked off, because you don't want all people to receive your offer before you've had a chance to review it with your buyer. Click the next button. Alright, so right now we see that Eric Lee's the buyer, I'm the buyer's agent. Now, I want to just make sure that I'm first on this list because I want to be able to review all documents prior to submitting it to my clients. Once I've signed off on it, and they will receive an email to e-sign all the documents. What I want to do, because this is my first time working with them, is make sure I give them a call just so I can go over the documents because I've already reviewed it and I've signed off on it. So once this is done, click next. Upload session docs. So in this case, they're going to try to autofill as much information as possible. So what you're going to say is, okay, the buyer is Eric Lee. The buyer's agent is myself. Once this is done, click next. Click the blue yes. Alright, so all our documents are uploaded. There's signing locations that it tells you. Click next. And now you can manually add signing locations if you need to. So in this case, everything is loaded now. This initial, buyer's initial, it's already set, Eric Lee. If we scroll down to the signatures line, we can see that Eric's signatures are in place, the date is in place, my signatures and date is in place, binding agreement name is blank, which is fine. Seller's property disclosure. Now, the reason I didn't fill all this out is I wanted to show you guys how to use the e-sign. Here, we labeled this as SPD in our purchase agreement, but it's not labeled SPD on the actual form. On the right hand side are global markups that you can do to the document that is not assigned to a particular person. So in this case, I can drag and click and hold and click add text and drag it over here, and you're just going to label that SPD. You guys can shorten this if you want, you don't really have to. And now we're just going to assume that the seller's property disclosure is filled out properly. Moving down, I see that, okay, everyone's signatures are here, dates here. This checkbox is not checked though, is not attached. So same thing, I'm going to head over to checkbox, check mark, click it, hold it, bring it over, and put it in is not attached. The same thing for this. This is our community association disclosure. We're just going to label this CAD. Again, we're just going to assume all of this stuff is filled out right now, even though it's not. We see that the buyer's initials are in place. Great. Moving on. Conventional loan contingency exhibit. CONV. Assume all of this is filled out right now. And we see that everything is filled out except for this check mark. So same thing, we're going to click and drag the check mark over to its correlating place. So now that everything has been filled in, let's say, for instance, on the community seller's property disclosure. Seller's property disclosure does not have an agent signature line, but what you can do to confirm that you've actually seen it and received it is you make sure the signer is yourself. Click the initials, hold it, drag it to the bottom left corner, and put your initials there. It shows reception of the seller's property disclosure by the agent. In this case, I'm just showing you guys an example of how to use the e-sign session. So, for instance, this is my initials, right? But if let's say this date box is missing, then I would just go to Eric, go to date and time, click, hold, drag to date, put it there. That's where their date form is going to get filled out. Once all of this is done for all of your documents, you're just going to click the next button. Markups have been added which will modify the original document, which is exactly what we wanted. So we just click yes, move on. I think this is just loading really slow because it should be taking me to the next screen. Okay, so there was an error right now. Let's try this again. Okay, so now all we're doing here is we're just previewing to make sure all the signatures are where we put them, and that this is really important for compliance. Just go through the document line by line, just make sure that everything you want checked off is checked off. Make sure that all checkboxes are filled, all form fields are addressed properly. And once you've completed compliance and looked it over, you're going to click the next button, and it should take you to the start signing session. Now, if I click next, it's going to take me directly to my e-sign session because I'm the first signer. So let's go ahead and do that. Click next. So here it's going to ask you to pick a signature or whatever. You can pick whatever one you want. I'm just going to click with the first one. You're going to agree, and you're going to click start. Now, this is the start of the e-sign session. When you guys are ready, what you're going to do is click the start button, orange arrow here. It's going to take you to your first sign item. You're going to click that box, click next, goes to your next one, click the box, go to next, click the box. Once you're done, it's going to take you to the sign and say all required fields have been completed. Would you like to complete your signing session? We're going to click yes. Once this has been done, automatically, once you guys click this, the documents are now sent to your clients for e-sign. In this particular case, we did not set a listing agent as a recipient for the e-sign automatically. Now, you guys can do that through adding signers tab, but for now, once your client signs off on this document, you're going to receive an email that says, congratulations, all parties have signed. You will be able to download the PDF versions from there. Download them, and then you can, in an email, upload the PDFs and then send it off to the listing agent as your offer. And that is going to be the end of how to submit an offer on RDocs.